privilege it is to be a son and a daughter of the Most High King, to be able to be in his house. You know, I'm super thankful today to be in his house. You know, I feel like the psalmist when he said, I was glad when they said unto me, let us go into the house of the Lord. I'm thankful to be here. I'm thankful to be in his house, thankful to be in his presence. So thankful for each one of you that are here. If you're joining us online, you get to see a part of it, but it's not the same as being here. But we're thankful that you are joining us today. So thankful to be back from Africa. Man, that was a super quick trip. Flew out. We were there. The team was there. Did an incredible job. It was the 5th trip of our mission journey experiences that we had here at Celebration this year. And I want to encourage you is by the time we reach October, we'll be laying out the next year's trips for everyone to be able to be a part of. I want to encourage you, if at all possible, I want you to pray about joining us on one of the journeys, one of the trips to be able to go on, to be able to experience what we are part of around the world and for the things that we do here at home as well. You were represented well in Africa. The team did an incredible job. They did some projects and feeding and building, and it was an incredible time. And I know that their lives were touched as they touched the lives of many people that are there. It's a privilege for our church to be able to partner with Buy Brick Foundation, with Give and Lee, who are part of our church. So good morning, y'all. It's actually evening time there. They're watching. So what's up, y'all? They're ready to get home and be a part of the church, though they're doing a great thing there. Man, VBS starts tomorrow. It's going to be packed. This place is, we don't have the room. Literally, it's going to be absolute chaos tomorrow, but for the glory of God, chaos. Like this room is, we don't have enough chairs on the grounds for the registration that's here. So we're gonna go like this sanctuary will seat, I think 335 or 450 very good friends. So we're so thankful for everyone that's playing a part in that, for all the volunteers, people that are serving, the leadership team, the staff. Man, what a great opportunity we have to be able to touch the lives of children on the Eastern Shore right here at Celebration Church. So thankful for our team. As I was out last week, I know all our leadership team did an incredible job. Pastor Marshall preached an incredible word on the waiting. I got to listen to it as he was preaching when he was going, and he made y'all pray 3 different times. And I know what some of y'all are thinking. Dude, I'm good for the rest of the week now. He got all that out of the way. I don't have to pray for the rest of the week. So super thankful for the word that he preached. And man, I have been so excited about this series in Nehemiah, because it's exciting to me, because it's a reminder. It's a reminder to me, and hopefully a reminder to you, to what God has called you to do. That it's important that you know whose you are, that you can understand that you are called by God to do something incredible for him. And we always think that doing something incredible is going to cause us to have to move halfway around the world. But doing something incredible is doing the everyday things that leads to the extraordinary miracle that God has for your life. There is no shortcut to his power until you get in his presence, and there is no shortcut to his presence until you pray and seek relationship with him, and you grow in the integrity of who he's called you to be as you learn about who he is, the character of his name, the character and the qualities that he gives you to live. I'm thankful for the reminder that God calls ordinary people to do incredible things. I know a lot of the times we think God can use all these super talented people. Oh, if I could sing, or oh, if I had a microphone and I wasn't so shy in front of people. Can I tell you, if you'll always think about the insecurities you have, you'll never have a chance to think about the capability that God's given you. Nehemiah is just a cupbearer to the king of Persia, who hears a report from his brother Hanani, who comes back and says, look, I've been to Jerusalem and it is in ruins. It's been destroyed. But when he hears this, it hits him so different. He becomes so burdened that he sits down and he weeps about it. He's so broken about how his homeland is. But you have to understand, it's not a place he's ever lived. It's not a place he's actually ever been. But he knows it's where he's supposed to be. It's kind of like your life before you're a believer. Even though you've never lived that life, you know it's the right life, and you know it's the life that God's called you to. He's burdened, he's moved to his core about rebuilding this wall and rebuilding the life that God has for his people. He's in Persia. If you read in chapter 1, he's in the winter city of Persia called Susa. And he is a cupbearer to King Artaxerxes. Now, there's been an attempt before to rebuild the walls, and it was stopped by the king. And now this report is given. And Nehemiah is so moved between chapter 1 and chapter 2. What you heard Pastor Marshall preach about last week was that it was about 4 months that he prayed. And by the time you get to chapter 2, you understand that he's so moved with a burden that he can't hide the emotions of what he feels about what has grabbed a hold of his heart. Like there are times in life where things grab me that I can't eat right, I can't sleep right, because I'm so driven to watch what God's going to do that I feel so called to the purpose and the burden to get hands to work. Because I know God didn't call me to be a spectator, he called me to be a contributor. Not a consumer in the kingdom, I'm a contributor in the kingdom, because he to whom much is given, much is required. And I see this beautiful moment where he says, you know, God's got to do something. And God showed it to me, and God laid the burden on me, so I need to do something about it. And God uses a cupbearer who's just a taster of food and of drink to the king to make sure that he's not poisoned, to be able to travel almost 1,000 miles to a place he's never been to rebuild a city he's never lived in. Walls, to erect these walls that he didn't know how to build. There's nothing in Nehemiah's past that shows us that he was a wall builder, that he was gifted in the art of construction or any labor like that. He's basically just a barrier for the king to make sure he doesn't get poisoned. There's nothing that tells us the people that are there before are very skilled. And if they are so skilled, why are they not rebuilding it? He asked for permission because Artaxerxes sees the sadness on his face. And you have to know that in that culture that it would have been against the law for him to show sadness in the presence of the king, because being in the presence of the king is a privilege. And so when he asks him why he's sad, he doesn't remove him, he's concerned. He's shown some value to the king, and he asks him why he's sad, and he tells him. And Artaxerxes blesses him to go, empowers him to go, and gives him a letter to protect him as he goes, and a letter to give him resources. Can I tell you that because he was a faithful worker, God used a man, a king who wasn't a godly king, who wasn't a man of principle and godly power, to be able to enable him to go and do the work. God used him in that way. God used the moment that he spent there. The thing of it is they had been in captivity for hundreds of years. Now, because Persia had overtaken Babylon, and they're out of Babylonian captivity and into Persia, Persia has allowed the Jewish people to have some rights again. They've allowed them to build a part of their lives. And Persia has allowed Jewish people to become so comfortable living in Persia that they no longer have a desire to return home. They could have stayed there forever and been just fine. They would have always been kind of an outsider, but that life had become comfortable to them. And so Nehemiah travels almost 1,000 miles with a clear vision to build the wall. He gets the supplies and inspires the hearts of the people that with God's help, they can rebuild what has been destroyed. And as the work is beginning, the opposition begins to heat up. The attacks begin. The enemies start rolling out. Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, everything in their power they're doing to distract Nehemiah. See, because if your enemy can't destroy you, your enemy will distract you. See, they had already mocked the work they were doing. If you look in Nehemiah chapter 4, Sanballat and Tobiah, Sanballat says, what are these feeble Jews doing? What are these weaklings doing? They're not gifted. He starts speaking to them, discrediting them, discouraging them, Tobiah, who's not great at trash talking, but he says, man, even a fox would knock down what they've built. You know, like a fox is some ferocious, crazy, big animal. You know, it would have been like an elephant. But anyway, he says a fox could. He's discouraging them. And then the Jewish people start listening to the discouragement because then they come up with a reason on why they can't. You know, they're like, hey, I can't do this. We're limited. And Nehemiah says to them, what does he say? He says, remember the Lord. Remember how good he is. He brings them back into focus, because when the enemy can't destroy you, he wants to distract you. So I want to walk through Nehemiah chapter 6 this morning. Nehemiah chapter 6 verse 1 says, Sanballat, who we're familiar with at this point, who tried to discourage earlier on, Tobiah, who also, and then Geshem the Arab, and the rest of our enemies found out that I had finished rebuilding the wall and that no gaps remained, though we had not yet set up the doors and the gates. So Sanballat and Geshem sent a message asking me to meet them at one of the villages in the plain of Ono. So he sends a message. They send a message to Nehemiah trying to get him off of the project, get him off of the work, get him distracted from the burden to go to a meeting. Can I tell you, I think some meetings are profitable, but not every meeting is. Some people like to have meetings for meeting's sake and accomplish nothing. I ain't got time for meetings that don't have a point. I don't have time to be setting up in meetings that take away my day to rob me from the work God's called me to do. Hell is working overtime, y'all. For me to sit at a coffee shop and waste my day having meetings upon meetings that don't accomplish anything. There's a work God's called us to do, and it's not always wasting our time in meetings, not accomplishing anything. There are times where God can use a meeting, but I've found there's a lot of time that meetings will distract you from destiny, and this is one of them. Nehemiah could have looked at this meeting as, you know what? Now they're not discouraging, now they want to talk. Maybe they want to help. Maybe this is an opportunity for me to convert my critics. Maybe to expand my influence. Or this is an opportunity for my brand to grow. And Nehemiah, this great leader, wall builder, and maybe this is a chance maybe they're going to give me some money to go towards the expense of this. He could have thought all of these things, but what he understands is God never called him to Sanballat and Tobiah. God called him to rebuild a wall. God called him to rebuild a wall. So when you know what God's called you to do, you know what he's called you not to do. See, God did not call Nehemiah to travel 25 miles northwest of Jerusalem to the plain of Ono to meet with his enemies. He'd already traveled almost 1,000 miles to rebuild the walls. Why would God lead him 25 miles northwest away from the thing he called him to do? It was a distraction. Do you know how long it takes to walk 25 miles? It would be like someone calling me, like it would be like VBS happening tomorrow and saying, hey, I would love for your staff to come up to Orange Beach and meet me for 30 minutes. I got something really important to talk to you about. And we spend 2 hours for a 30-minute meeting, so 2.5 hours away from what God called us to do this week. That's how the enemy works. He wants to distract you. Has anybody in here ever been distracted by a meeting? Somebody calling us like, hey, I need to talk to you. Not every meeting's like that, but there are some. This was a meeting like that. See, what we call an opportunity, God often calls a distraction. See, it's never been easier to get distracted than the day and age we live in, right? I mean, you have a conversation with someone, the next thing you know, you pick up your phone and Big Brother is on point. You got 50 ads about what you had a conversation about. I remember when I was looking at an elk hunting trip, I just had a conversation with a guy. We were looking at it. Next thing I know, I open up my phone, and there are 10 ads about elk hunter outfitters. And I'm like, I don't even know if these people are legal. I'm going to have to check them out. Or if April and I are talking, she's like, baby, I got this project I want you to do. And I'm like, well, I open up my phone, and there it is, a bunch of DIY connections that I know the Lord hasn't called me to. It's like, baby, I'm about the Father's business. It's never been easier to get distracted. April had me doing something. Unless you'll ask me to do something, and I'll say, yes, I'll do it. And what I've found is that as I agree to do it, I get distracted by things that don't matter, and I will spend the rest of my day doing something that I've let go for 4 years that really no one else notices. You know, it should be like, hey, are you going to get to that? I was like, yes, I'm in the middle of cleaning the lug nuts on my rims. Couldn't stand it another day. My kids are really good at this when they were at home. Give them a task to do, they get to work all day. I'm like, hey, did you get done what I asked you to do? No, well, I mean, I'm going to. Don't worry, Dad, I'm going to. But I had to take care of something. Oh, don't worry, I spent my own money. Well, it originally was my money before I gave it to you, but okay. You spent your own money, which means I had to give you more. Well, what'd you do? I spent all day putting up LED strips on my wall. For what? It's in your bedroom. Who needs a light show in their bedroom? I don't know. It's really important. That's a distraction away from the task that's been given to you. It's easy to get distracted in the day and age that we live in. We get so distracted. Our phones interrupt us. But in this instance, the enemy's asked Nehemiah for a meeting, and Nehemiah rejects them because he keeps building the wall. He says, no. Look, it might do good for some of us to learn how to say that. Do you know that no is as anointed as yes? Because you have a capacity in life. He didn't say, maybe if I get time, I'll come see you. No is a complete sentence. You don't have to add anything to it or take anything away from it. No is no. See, if you're always available to every single person, eventually you'll have nothing to give to anybody else. Just because you can doesn't mean you should. You have capacity as an individual. Ono is 25 miles northwest of Jerusalem. He could have went to Ono, to the plain of Ono, but that wasn't his calling. His capacity was to build a wall. So many times, the enemy gives us opportunity that outruns our capacity, and we hit burnout in life because we're agreeing to do more than God ever called us to do. Listen to me. It ain't popular, but it's still good preaching. I'm going to do this, and I'm going to show everybody I'm strong enough. No. You're not strong enough. He's strong enough. And you have to be strong enough to realize what he's called you to do, not trying to impress everybody else by trying to do everything. There's a capacity that you have as an individual. 4 times they come with the same exact message to Nehemiah to get him to stop rebuilding. Say, hey, let's talk. But they have no goal of helping him. The 5th time, they changed the strategy. Verse 5 says that Sanballat's servants came with an open letter in his hand. Check out the craftiness of what they do here. And it says in verse 6, and this is what it said, there is a rumor among the surrounding nations, and Geshem tells me it is true. Because, surely if Geshem says so, it must be true. That you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you are building the wall. According to his reports, you plan to be their king. It's like in the grocery store. When I was a kid growing up and I'm walking through the line, there was a thing called the National Enquirer. It's like, aliens and this celebrity have flown away to another planet. And you're like, oh, that's crazy. I can't believe that happened. This must be true. Because the National Enquirer says so. Well, I don't know what satires you have today, but there are a lot of things that come out that people are like, man, did you hear? So-and-so. You got to be careful about what you allow as a rumor, that you don't give truth to it. It says that you and the Jews are planning to rebel, and that is why you're building the wall. According to his reports, you plan to be their king. What is he trying to do? He's trying to provoke a response from Nehemiah because Artaxerxes is the king he served under who empowered him to go and do this work. So he's like, I'm going to label you a traitor. I'm going to, someone who is trying to rebel and cause a mutiny to go and fight them. That's what I'm going to call. And that'll distract you. That'll cause you to be like, no, I'm not. Let me go let me go and fight this rumor and prove that it's not true. There's a Brazilian novelist who's pretty popular who has this phrase that he's known for saying that says, rumors are carried by haters, spread by fools, and accepted by idiots. Amen. You cannot control what people say. You can't. There's a rumor, but Nehemiah doesn't let it distract him. You will never do great things for God if you're distracted by small-minded people. When you let the opinion of someone else disrupt the calling of God on your life, look, there comes a point where you realize that not 1 ounce of my self-worth is dependent upon an opinion of someone who didn't die for me, didn't resurrect for me, and is not returning for me. But rumors are rumors, right? Have you ever heard something about yourself that you were like, wow, that's crazy? That's wild. Sometimes the rumors are so much more impressive than the truth. I met with a leader of our fellowship that we were a part of years ago, about 6, 7 years in here, and we were talking about the disconnection and us being one of the larger churches in their district. Why the only time we were ever talked about was when they needed something creative, and so we're just having a conversation, and he said, "Well, Johnny, someone told me you was moving back to Arkansas." Yeah, I've been here 6, 7 years. I'm like, brother, I go back to Arkansas. My best friend in life lives there, but I have not one time talked about moving back to Arkansas. I mean, there's only one place more redneck than Alabama, and that is Arkansas. Most people wear shoes here. I'm kidding. Look, I'm joking. Arkansas people are great, yeah, and teeth and all that. So it's good. It's good. Just because I like Arkansas doesn't mean I want to live there. God didn't call me to live in Arkansas. If he called me to live in Arkansas, he'd have left me in Arkansas. God called me to Alabama to rebuild something that was broken. And it was a distraction. It was a rumor. So am I supposed to be like, who told you that? So I'm going to go slap them in the face to move back to Arkansas. Because you can't combat stupidity. You get down on their level. That's why you don't entangle yourselves in civilian affairs. Nehemiah don't have time to run and be like, I'm not going to be the king. Because if he's running around trying to prove he's not being the king, he's not being the leader God has called him to be in the place God called him to lead. Someone one time made an attack on integrity, the way we do things as a church, and that one almost got me. There are times where people say things that almost get me, and I'm like, oh, okay, you got me, let's play. In my humanity, that's sometimes how I respond, and the Holy Ghost and then my wife remind me, Johnny, you got a call on your life. Stay committed to the call. Don't argue with stupid people. You're like, you call people stupid. Look, rumors are spread by haters, right? Spread by haters, was carried by haters, spread by fools, and accepted by idiots. If you want to believe a rumor, then that's on you. Because you've got every opportunity to see if it's true. Had Nehemiah one time said to them, I'm going to be the king? Nope. What was his clear mission and vision? Rebuild the wall. That's it. He didn't give a whole political speech about how Artaxerxes was an idiot and how he wasn't a godly king or a godly leader. He didn't have to because he was busy doing the work. Wise man once told me, you don't have to worry about what people say about you. You just need to worry about what's true about you. Another guy told me one time, don't tell me what they said about me. Tell me why they felt comfortable saying it to you. You ever notice that if people are always having your name run down to them, there's something about them that looks accepting about loyalty towards you? See, the truth of it is lies will affect you to the level of your insecurities. Oh, they think I'm trying to be. Nehemiah did not bow to that. Here's what he said in verse 8. He said, there is no truth in any part of your story. You're making up the whole thing. Done. He goes back to work. He didn't sit back and be like, I'm sick and tired of Sanballat and Tobiah and Geshem, and it's about time I let them know just what dirty dogs they are, and I'm going to take 30 minutes to let the whole world know how sorry they are. He's like, none of that's true. I'm going to work. What's the goal of what they're doing? What is the goal of what they're doing? They're trying to distract Nehemiah. Verse 9 says, they were just trying to intimidate us, imagining that they could discourage us and stop the work. So I continued to work with even greater determination. How cool is that? He's like, they keep trying, and it makes me more driven to do the work. And then they change it up again. They come back. And they try to do one of the things that is one of the reasons great men fail, because of entitlement and the abuse of authority. Verse 10 says, later I went to visit Shemaiah, and he said, let us meet together inside the temple of God and bolt the door shut. Your enemies are coming to kill you tonight. He's saying, hey, look, I'm your friend, and I'm going to protect you, and let's go hide ourselves inside the temple, again, the holy place, inside this sacred place to which Nehemiah doesn't have a right to be in. He's trying to show an improper use of authority, to use it to his benefit, and abuse of power, abuse the power that God had given him. And here's what he responded. He said, should someone in my position run from danger, or should someone in my position enter the temple to save his life? No, I won't do it. Verse 12, I realized that God had not spoken to him, but he had uttered this prophecy against me because Tobiah and Sanballat had hired him. They were hoping to intimidate me and make me sin. Then they would be able to accuse me and discredit me. Can I tell you, the enemy will take low blows. When it's not just the obvious. Look, do you realize the enemy slithers in like a snake sometimes? He doesn't always lead with a pitchfork and horns. I'm going to destroy your life. Come follow me. I'm going to make you. It doesn't show you the finished product. It shows you this lie. Man, I mean, Nehemiah could have been like, man, they're coming to get me. Yeah, let me hide inside the safe place. He said, well, I don't have a right to be in there. If they're coming to get me, I'm doing what God's called me to do, then let them come get me. Because the one who called me to do this is the one who's going to protect me. I don't have to change course. I'm right in the middle of where God called me to be. Let them come. That's the mindset that he has. Bring it on. Bring it on. Come on. I'm not going to do something that's not allowed because you said it was going to happen. He's like, I'm not going to hide out. I'm not going to take special privileges. I'm not going to leave with an entitled heart. Why? Because Nehemiah is saying this wasn't about me when it started, and it's not going to be about me now. Nehemiah didn't go there to make a name. He came there to build a wall. And they are trying to discourage and scare and distract. That's why in verse 3 of this chapter, he said, I sent messengers to them saying, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Why should the work stop while I leave it and come down to you? What does he say? And he said, I'm not trying to do what's impressive. I'm called to do what's important. I'm not trying to become popular. I'm trying to live out my purpose. I'm not coming down. I'm not backing off. I'm not taking my eyes off the prize. I'm called to this great work. It makes me start thinking in our lives that are applicable to this day. See, it wasn't that Nehemiah just said, I'm just a wall builder. No, he knew what building that wall did for the people, what it did for his homeland, the strength, the vitality they could bring back to Jerusalem for God's people. Because it wasn't just about what he was doing, it was what he thought about what he was doing. I can remember when our kids were little at home, and when Gavin was born, in 2002, by 2005, we had our other two. So there we are in that short span with 3 children. And April, we had decided that she was going to be, until the kids got old enough to go to school, she was going to stay at home. And that came with some sacrifice. And she's staying at home. And I can remember at times when she would call me through the day and say, hey, what are you doing? I was like, hey, I'm with the leadership team and we're grabbing a bite to eat. And she's like, oh, must be nice. Go eat lunch with adults. Have conversation. It's not like, taking that diaper off and writing your name on the wall. Like, I felt like she was mad at me. I'm like, I'm sorry, I'm eating. I don't know what you... But here's what we knew. We were making a decision to stay on point to what God had called us to do in there. She could have said, oh, I'm just at home, I'm not important. She was caring for our children. It's not about what you do, it's what you think about what you do. If there were days where it was challenging, but you keep your eyes on the prize of what God's called you to do and you stay faithful to that. Like, well, yeah, I just, nobody sees me, well, can I tell you that when your kids grow up, everybody will see what you did. What you're doing right now, you may not do forever, but what you're doing right now matters today, amen? In this season, this is your calling. This is your great work. Well, I'm trying to build a business. For who? For the Lord's glory or your own? Well, I'm believing God for God's provision. He'll provide for you, but make sure that you don't use provision to distract you away from destiny. Or you think, man, God's calling me to start a small group, and then the enemy begins to shout at you all the labels of your past. Can I tell you that I'm thankful that God redeems us from our past that is broken and puts us on a new trail, puts us in a new life, that old things have passed, and behold, all things are made new, that He's thrown our sin in the deepest sea to never be brought against us again. That's the beauty of God's grace. He's called me to the work. Not to bring up my past and wear the label of my past. God rescued me from that. There's this moment where you got to understand what you're doing. It's like as a teenager, as a young person, you say, God's called me to live a pure life. And you're saving yourself for marriage because you know your worth is more than a cheap pickup line in a good-looking vehicle. Or the voices of discouragement, or the spiritual opposition, or people laughing because of decisions you've made. And you just look it in the face and say, I'm okay because I'm not coming down, because I'm going to do the work God's called me to do, because I'm building a wall and I don't have time for this. See, if you will keep your hands to the work God's called you to do, you don't have time for the stupidity of this world. Verse 14 of this chapter, he says, remember, God, all the evil things that Tobiah and Sanballat have done. And remember Noadiah, the prophet, and all the prophets like her who have tried to intimidate me. And it says in verse 15 that the wall was finished 52 days after it had begun. Can I tell you, that was the goal the whole time. So from chapter 1 to chapter right here, the goal has been to get the wall up. And what you see is the opposition that was used. From the very beginning, it could have been, man, I'm just a cupbearer. I got things worked out here. God put a burden on his heart and his life. And he said, I cannot ignore what God's calling me to do. And then he faced opposition, discouragement, from the outside and the inside. And now they're trying to distract him from this completion in 52 days. In 52 days, they rebuilt what had been destroyed for hundreds of years. And guess what? No legion of angels showed up and built it for them. There was no parting of a Red Sea. There was no miraculous moment like that. You know what they did? They went to work every day until it was done. And God did in 52 days what they couldn't do in hundreds of years. You want to know why? Because the miracles in the moments that you stay committed to the work God's called you to stay committed to. Stop looking for bright and shining and burning bushes and just stay committed to the moment God's met you where you are. I need God to give. God saved your soul, rescued your life. If he don't do another thing for you, stay committed to the work. I feel so lonely. Loneliness is not a truth because he said he would never leave you and never forsake you. He's a friend that sticks, he's a friend that sits closer. He will stay close to you. He will never leave you, never forsake you, never hang you out to dry. God's always with you as his child. So you don't have to get discouraged. There was no victory song they practiced. They just finished in 52 days like they always should have. Because when you are doing what God's called you to do, you don't become a marketing person for the ordinary that God does. Oh, God did something. Oh, God did this. We better video it and send it out to the world so everybody know we're the only church doing it. No, God's using a lot of great churches to do a lot of great things. So you know what? We're going to stay faithful to what God's called us to do because we're not in competition. We have an opportunity to do what God's called us to build this part of a wall. And we're going to stay to work what God's called us to do. Verse 16, he says, when our enemies and surrounding nations heard about it, they were frightened and humiliated. They realized this work had been done with the help of our God. There's no doubt. When someone looks at your life, they ought to say, man, that's a story of God's redemption and what God can do with a life that's surrendered to Him. See, the greater the opposition against you, the greater the opportunity He has to fight for you. So today, as I begin to close, and that's not a trick, I'm going to close here pretty soon. I want to ask you this question. What is your cause? What is your cause? Now, I've explained in the weeks past that there's a possibility that there are seasons where things look a little different from you. Looks a little different for you. But what is your cause? What is it that burdens your heart? Like for my life, I have this vision statement. And it's very simple because I have to keep things simple for me. So if I make it hard, I'm going to get disinterested. I have this saying, it's like, I just need to keep it simple, stupid. I call me stupid, not you. I got to keep it simple. So my vision statement is very simple. I want to love God, my family, and His church in that order. That's it. Because if I can love God, it'll break every generational curse that my family has struggled with. Every single hurt, every single dysfunction, if I will love God with everything. See, I can't even be a good husband because I can't even love my wife the right way if I don't love God the right way. You're like, oh, you get all that from that simple saying? You better believe it, honey child, every single bit of that. And I'm reminded of it every day. I love my family. Well, yeah, your kids are grown now. I still got to love them. Like I don't ever want to look my son, my daughter, my youngest son in the face and tell them that this gospel I preached wasn't enough to redeem me and keep me from stupidity. I want them to know that this platform preaching was lived in private too. I want to love my family. I want my wife to have confidence that my eyes are only for her. Not because I'm great, because I'm building a wall, y'all. When you don't know your cause, when you don't know your burden, you're like, well, aren't you pastoring a church? Yes, I do that third. Because it doesn't matter if I'm a pastor and have no integrity. God would rather me do anything in life with integrity than be a pastor without it. What's the point of having a title if you have no relationship with God and you don't love your family? My family is my first ministry. And you know what? It helped me make hard decisions. Why? Because I knew I was building a wall. I'm loving God with everything. I'm going to love my family. I'm going to serve His church in that order. Yeah, but the Bible says, seek ye first the kingdom. Well, the kingdom is not this building. I've seen so many leaders throw their families out to dry while they made sure the church was going, and their families don't have a relationship with God because they've seen a performer instead of a private devotion. Not in my life, not on my watch. Why? Because God didn't call me to give credibility to a critic. He called me to build a wall. So let a punk run that mouth. Because you know what? I've taken the point of this. If they're running their mouth about me, they're giving somebody else a break. I ain't running for office anyway. I ain't a politician. I'm a preacher of the gospel, y'all. I ain't trying to get a famous vote. I ain't trying to, well, I got to say this to make somebody happy. Don't have to, because I'm building a wall. What's your cause? Man, my family loved Jesus. I knew my why. I knew God didn't call me to preach, to stand up on platforms across the world just so I could brag about it. See, Nehemiah refused to let these distractions defy his God and who God called him and anointed him to be. No matter your season, you better know your calls. I've watched great men in this season that I'm in with their kids or when they're empty nesters, and the church has grown and they've hit a season and the leadership changes and the way that it does, the empowerment of executives and things like that, and things that just have to happen in a church our size. To go, no, we may approach it different, but we're still building a wall for the glory of God. God has called us to build and to fight, not against each other, but against the enemy. If he knew God was a record keeper, you understand that it'd been better. The word tells us that it's better that someone never been born than to offend one of his little ones. God's a record keeper. He said, hey, remember what Sanballat, Tobiah, and Geshem have done? And Noadiah, and remember them? He's like, I got it. Stay committed to the work. Because when you don't know what you're fighting for, you're going to spend all your energy fighting against the things that don't matter. I'm trying to prove myself to people. People didn't die for you, and people ain't coming back for you. Jesus is. He says you're enough, that he gave his everything for you. And if you don't know what you're fighting for, you're going to fight against a bunch of things that are going to distract you. You're going to fight against your spouse. You're going to fight against your family. You're going to fight against your church. You're going to become a critic that knows how the church should do while you hadn't led a person to Jesus Christ in years. And you'll start all this inner turmoil and fighting of stupidity because you're missing your purpose and your call. God's calling you to let go of your hurt and get to building. And at the end of this, why? So you'll have walls. I want you to stand with me today. If you're able, I want you to stand to your feet. I got 2 minutes. And I'm going to finish in 2 minutes. That's a promise to you. Walls have two purposes. They keep the things in that need to be in and the things out that need to stay out. You better get to building a wall for the Lord's glory. So what's in the inside needs to stay, will stay there. And what's on the outside will stay on the outside where it belongs. Amen? Father, in the name of Jesus, may you do a work. God, you may do a work in each person's heart, that if someone is far from you, may they take this moment to say, God, I give you my life and I give you my heart. Today, if that's you and you know you're far from God and you want to be a son or a daughter of the Most High King, you can believe it in your mind and in your heart, but if you don't confess it with your mouth, you don't seal the deal. So today, if you want to give your heart and life to Jesus Christ, I want you to make this confession and repeat these words after me. Jesus, today I give you my life. I give you everything. I lay it down at your feet. Now make me new. Be my Lord and my Savior.